In this demonstration, you will load meetings in the navigation view model, and you will extend the navigation view so that the user can select a meeting. Let's switch to Visual Studio and let's start with the navigation view model. So far, the navigation view model loads friends by using the lookup data service of the Friend Organizer UI project. That lookup data service class contains a getFriendLookupAsync method that returns a lookup item for each friend. In this class, I have created already a getMeetingLookupAsync method that creates a DB context and accesses the meetings DB set of that context. For each meeting in the database, this method creates a lookup item, and the ID of the lookup item is the meeting ID, and the display member of the lookup item is the meeting title. At the end, the method returns the created lookup items. When I scroll up to the class definition, you can see that the lookup data service class already implements the new iMeetingLookupDataService interface. I have also added this interface to the lookups folder. You can see it just contains the getMeetingLookupAsync method. We don't need to register this interface in the Bootstrapper because we have implemented our special logic with the asImplementedInterfaces method. So here you see that the lookup data service class is registered as implemented interfaces. This means that a lookup data service instance is automatically used when an iMeetingLookupDataService type is required. So we can go straight to the navigation view model and we can just use our new iMeetingLookupDataService. So here I add a new constructor parameter of type iMeetingLookupDataService and I call it MeetingLookupService. I copy the name, and in the constructor I write _MeetingLookupService, and I store the instance in that field. I press Ctrl- to generate the field _MeetingLookupService. Now I scroll down a bit, and you can see that we have here a friends property that is of type observable collection of navigation item view model. I just copy that property, and I call the new property meetings. Note, instead of putting two different types into this single navigation view model, we could also create a friend navigation view model and a meetings navigation view model and the corresponding friend navigation view and the corresponding meeting navigation view. This would make sense if you have many different types in your navigation. But in our case, we have just these two types, so it's completely fine to put them together into a single navigation view model. Now I scroll up to the constructor again, and I initialize our new meetings property with a new observable collection of navigation item view model. Now the next step is to implement the loadAsync method. Here we have already the logic to load the friends. So the simplest way is to copy this logic and to paste it here and to adjust it for the meeting. So in this case, we use the meeting lookup service and we call the method getMeetingLookupAsync. And I can reuse the lookup variable here. After I did this, I clear the meetings observable collection and I loop through the lookup items. And for each lookup item, I want to add an entry to our meetings property. If a meeting is clicked, we don't want to open up the friend detail view model, instead we want to open up the meeting detail view model. Now the load logic is already done. When I scroll up to the constructor, you can also see that we subscribe to the two events after detail saved and after detail deleted in this navigation view model. So we also need to take care of the event handlers. Let's start with the after detail saved event handler. In this event handler, we have a switch by view model name that we receive over the after detail saved event args. In case of the friend detail view model, we grab the single item that has been saved from the friends observable collection. If it doesn't exist, we create a new navigation item view model, and if it exists, we just update the display member property. Now we could copy this whole logic again for the meeting, but let's try to refactor it so that we can reuse it. So I just cut this whole block, and I call here a method after detail saved. I pass in the friends observable collection and the event args that are stored in this object parameter. I press Ctrl- to generate that method after detail saved. So now we have these two parameters, but the first parameter shouldn't be called friends, it's just items, so that we can reuse it. I paste the logic that I cut it from the after detail saved method above. Now let's see if we can reuse this whole thing. I use the collection that we have received here and I replace friends here with that collection. And you see, that's it. Now we can reuse the whole logic for our meetings. I scroll up again to the after details saved event handler and I just copy that case. In case of the meeting detail view model, I just pass the meetings observable collection to our after details saved method. Now we are done. Let's go down again and let's ensure this. Oh no, wait! Here we have still the friend detail view model inside. This is wrong. I think you noticed this already, but you didn't say anything. So let's adjust this. Here we can just use the event args and we use the view model name property. That's it. And personally, I don't like this object parameter, so let's rename it to args. Let's also scroll up and let's also rename it here in the after details saved method that is used as an event handler. Now let's scroll up to the after detail deleted method. Here we have also a switch statement by view model name. Now we do the same. We cut this logic here and we call an after detail deleted method with the friends observable collection and these event args. I press Ctrl dot to generate that method. And in that method, I paste the existing logic. I rename the first parameter from friends to items and I add a line break here. Now I just use this items parameter here and also here. And I don't want the variable to be called friend. I press F2 and I rename it to item. Now I scroll up again and I add an additional case here for the new meeting detail view model. And we pass the meetings collection to our after detail deleted method. Now we are done already in the navigation view model. Let's just check if we can build the solution. Okay, rebuild all succeeded. That means we can continue with the navigation view. Now as the navigation view model is done, we can focus on the UI in the navigation view. The navigation view contains an items control and its item source property is bound to the friends property of the navigation view model. Now I want to display another items control that is bound to the meetings property of the navigation view model. I want to display the items control with the meetings below this items control with the friends. But the meetings property contains, like this friends property, lookup items. So in fact we can reuse this item container style and also the item template. As you can see, the item template is already friend independent. We refactored this logic in the previous module. So here we have, for example, an open detail view command and not an open friend view command. To reuse the data template and also this style, we need to put these things into the resources. So I define here the user control resources element. I cut the style for the item container style property and I paste it into the resources. Now I give the style a key by using the xKey attribute. I call it Navi item container style. I remove the items control item container style element and on the items control I set the item container style property by using the static resource markup extension and I reference our Navi item container style. Now I do exactly the same with the data template that lives in the item template property. I collapse it and I cut it from here and I go to the resources and I just paste the data template to the resources of the user control. I also give the data template a key by using the xKey attribute. The key is in this case Navi item template. I scroll down again to the items control and I remove this items control item template element. On the items control, I set the item template property and I use the static resource markup extension to reference the Navi item template. Now I can close the items control directly here instead of using an explicit closing element. Now I want to add another row definition to this grid so that I can display the items control for the meetings below the items control for the friends. So let's set here the grid row definitions property. I add a row definition for the friends. I give this one a height of 300. And I add another row definition for the meetings and this one gets the height star, which is the default value, so we can omit it. Now in the first row definition, I place a group box and the group box gets the header friends. In that group box, I place the existing content that we have here. The scroll viewer and the items control that is bound to the friends property of the navigation view model. Now I copy this whole group box and I paste it again. I set this time the header to meetings and I put this group box into grid row 1. I bind the item source property of the items control to the meetings property of the navigation view model. Now we are done with the navigation view. Let's see this in action and let's run the application. Here we go. On the top we see the 4 friends and at the bottom we see the meeting watching soccer. As we reused the item container style and the data template, this gets also bold when we hover it with the mouse. But when I click on a meeting, we get a null reference exception in the main view model, because the detail view model property is null here when we call the load async method on it. The reason is that we don't create a meeting detail view model yet in the main view model when a meeting is clicked in the navigation. So this is the next thing that we do. We create a meeting detail view model in our main view model. In this demonstration, you will instantiate the meeting detail view model in the main view model. You will also learn how to use AutoFac's iIndex interface in the main view model that makes the instantiation of detail view models much simpler. So let's switch again to the friend organizer solution. Here I've opened the main view model of the friend organizer application. As you can see, the constructor of the main view model takes a func of iFriend detail view model. This func is used to create friend detail view models in this main view model. As we also want to create meeting detail view models in the main view model, I add another parameter here of type func iMeeting detail view model. And I call the parameter meeting detail view model creator. I copy that name and I go to the constructor and I add a field here underscore meeting detail view model creator and I assign the instance. I press Ctrl dot to generate that field. Now when I scroll a bit down, you can see that this main view model subscribes to the Open Detail View event. This event is published by the navigation view model when an item is clicked. So when we go to this onOpenDetailView method that handles the event, you can see that we create in this method a new friend detail view model by using this friend detail view model creator func. Now I just copy this whole case block here, and in case of the meeting detail view model, we want to use the meeting detail view model creator func. In addition, I want to add a default to the switch statement. If the view model is not mapped in the switch statement, I just throw a new exception. View model args view model name not mapped. And as we throw the exception, we also don't need the break keyword here. Now let's run the application and let's see if this works. Oh, already at startup, I get an AutoFac core dependency resolution exception. So when I click on view details, I might see the error. I open up inner exception and inner exception again, and now the inner exception is null. What is the message? Cannot resolve parameter func of iMeeting detail view model. So this is a clear indicator that we forgot to register the iMeeting detail view model interface in our AutoFac configuration. So let's stop the application again and let's go to the startup folder where we have our Bootstrapper class. Here you see the friend detail view model and the navigation view model and the main view model, but there is no meeting detail view model. So let's just call here builder register type, and we want to register the meeting detail view model as an iMeeting detail view model. Now let's run the application again. This time it looks better and the application comes up. Now let's click on the watching soccer meeting and you can see the details for this meeting. We see the title and also the start and the end date. So when I click on this date time picker control, I can adjust the time here. Let's set this to 8. And also the end date, I set this maybe to 12. Now I click save and this meeting has been saved. Also if I change the title, I can save the meeting and you see that it updates in the navigation. Let's change it back to just soccer. When I click on a friend, we can see the friend